A Phoenician trader arriving at a foreign dock didn't need to ask about prices. He already understood them. Not because he trusted the local ruler, not because he spoke the same language, but because the prices had been set long before his arrival, across the Mediterranean from the Levantine coast to Iberia and from Cyprus to North Africa. Phoenician traders created something the ancient world had never seen before, a commercial system that operated independently of any empire. Prices, weights, measures, and expectations were consistent across thousands of kilometers. This was upheld not by armies or laws, but by merchant. Discipline and frequent trade. This system fundamentally changed how trade functioned. The Phoenicians came from a narrow coastal region along the eastern Mediterranean in what is today modern Lebanon. Cities like Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos were not capitals of empires. They were ports squeezed between the sea and mountains, lacking farmland but rich in timber, shipbuilding skills, and navigational expertise. They had no option but to trade. While land empires moved inward, the Phoenicians ventured outward. Their ships crossed the Mediterranean long before Rome understood naval power. They reached Cyprus, Crete, Sicily, Sardinia, Iberia, and North Africa. They didn't conquer these areas, they connected them. Connection required consistency. In most of the ancient world, prices were local. Value depended on personal identity, location, and who held power. A ruler could set a price. A tax collector could change terms overnight. Weights were inconsistent by city, and measures varied by market. Bargaining was endless and inefficient. This chaos was detrimental to long-distance trade. The Phoenicians addressed this issue by standardizing values before modern currency existed. Silver served as their main unit of account. They didn't use coins, but weighed silver. The key factors were not the markings, but the weight and purity. Over time, Phoenician traders came to agree on widely accepted weight units: the shekel, the mina, and the talent. These were not just theoretical measures, they were actual physical objects. Stone and metal weights, precisely calibrated, have been discovered along Phoenician trade routes. Their shapes and markings were uniform.
A shekel from Tyre weighed the same as a shekel from Carthage. A mina from Sidon matched a mina from Sardinia. This was groundbreaking. It meant value could be transported. A trader carrying silver knew precisely how much purchasing power he had, no matter which port he entered. Prices fluctuated
within narrow ranges, but the basic unit remained stable. This minimized risk, encouraged higher volumes, and rewarded planning. Standard weights predicted prices. Predictable prices built trust. Trust enabled scale. The Phoenicians reinforced this system by excluding non-compliant ports rather than using force. Any port that manipulated weights would lose network access. A merchant found cheating faced closed doors in other Mediterranean locations. Reputation was transferable, and memories were long. There was no appeals process. This discipline extended beyond metal. Phoenician amphorae, ceramic jars used for wine, oil, and other goods, were made in standardized sizes. Their shapes were not decorative, but
Practical. Anyone familiar with Phoenician trade understood how much liquid a certain amphora held. This made containers function like contracts. A buyer didn't need to open the jar to value its content. The container itself served as a measuring unit. This minimized disputes, sped up transactions, and allowed for bulk
Pricing. Speed mattered since maritime trade was seasonal. Winds changed. Delays raised costs. Standard prices cut down negotiation time. Instead of endless haggling, traders moved goods swiftly. Time saved translated to profit earned. Certain goods became benchmarks throughout the Phoenician network. Silver, tin, copper, textiles, glass, purple dye, wine, olive oil.
Oil and timber all established relatively stable exchange ratios. While these ratios were not fixed, they were well remembered. Price memory was more significant than price rigidity. A bale of wool trading for a specific amount of silver in one port would trade similarly in another, adjusted for transport costs and
local availability. Arbitrage was possible, but worked within known limits. Major price differences were rare because traders quickly capitalized on them. The market balanced itself. Phoenician colonies were crucial. Places like Carthage were not mere extractive colonies run by governors. They mirrored Phoenician trading standards, weights, and practices. Each colony reinforced the network. This created what can be described as a Mediterranean price corridor. Goods moved along predictable routes. Prices converged not due to centralized authority, but because deviations were punished by exclusion. The Phoenicians also standardized trust through symbols and marks. Seals, stamps, and inscriptions identified origins, merchant families,
or workshops. Literacy wasn't necessary. Recognition sufficed. A mark served as a contract. A familiar mark decreased uncertainty, while an unknown mark raised risk. Over time, this produced brand-like effects long before branding existed. Phoenician traders also established risk-sharing. Large voyages were costly and perilous. Losses from storms or piracy could ruin individuals. Evidence suggests cargoes were often divided among multiple investors, sharing profits and losses. This financial advance supported price stability. When risk was shared, traders could accept narrower profit margins. Narrower margins meant more consistent prices. More consistent prices resulted in greater volume. The system sustained itself. Phoenician. Success in price standardization didn't mean prices were immune to change. They did respond to supply shocks, harvest failures, and political disturbances, but these changes were gradual, not random. In contrast, land-based economies often faced rulers debasing metal content to fund wars. They altered weights, imposed price controls, or seized goods, destroying price memory. Merchants responded by hoarding, fleeing, or demanding higher prices. Phoenician trade avoided this trap because it wasn't state-controlled. There was no Phoenician empire to debase currency, no central treasury to raid. Power was spread among merchants whose interests aligned with stability. Stability was profitable. This system influenced others. Greek city-states adopted standardized coins partly to fit into existing trade networks. Early Greek coins often matched Phoenician weight standards. This wasn't coincidental. Phoenician practices provided the model. Carthage took over and broadened the system. From North Africa, Carthaginian traders maintained price consistency across the Western Mediterranean. Initially, Rome was a customer, not a creator. Later, Rome established its own monetary order. Even then, Roman denarius standards closely mirrored earlier Mediterranean weight norms. The legacy remained. The Phoenician model shows a fundamental truth about markets. Standardization doesn't require sovereignty. It needs incentives that promote trade. Where traders expect to meet again, dishonesty fades. Where dishonesty fades, prices stabilize. Where prices stabilize, markets expand. The Phoenicians grasped this instinctively.
They didn't develop economic theories, they applied them. Their ships transported more than goods. They carried ideas about value that withstood storms, borders, and centuries. Empires rose and fell around them.
The price system persisted. When coinage replaced weighed silver, the basic principles did not change. Coins functioned because they referred to trusted weight standards. Without that trust, coins were merely metal discs. The Phoenicians established trust first. This is why their influence lasted long after their political power faded.
Their cities were conquered, their language disappeared, yet the commercial framework they built became the foundation of Mediterranean trade. Modern markets still depend on the same principles: standardized units, clear pricing, reputation enforcement, and network discipline. The tools have evolved, but the logic has not. The Phoenicians were more than
Traders. They were architects of a system. They demonstrated that prices could unify regions more effectively than military force, that consistency could bridge distances, that money doesn't need a flag to function. They standardized prices across the Mediterranean by making deviations costly and cooperation rewarding. They turned weights into laws.